American football in Finland.
We gave Offensive Player of the Year to Bryce Stancombe from the Helsinki Roosters.
Don't do him dirty like that.
Don't do him like that, now. Don't do him like that.
It's so
That was
weird.
close.
It's so weird. It's so close every time. Just like the raw, like Texas accent. But we're not gonna harp on it, guys. Like
We've talked about it more.
talked about Bryce already. There's no reason. Offensively, I think with our offensive player of the year, we made sure that we wanted someone that had an impact on offense and not necessarily was I mean, he might have been a stat leader. I really don't know. But again, I said it earlier, his stats were kind of hindered by the team not playing him and not giving him an opportunity to actually do more. But as a player, he easily was offensive player of the year, stood out. I really think if we weren't to give it to him, we probably would have thought Brandon Gwinner. Like that's the second name in my mind if I had to throw out another one. I really couldn't think of anyone else that like made that type of impact on offense. It's hard to go away from the quarterback position. Because I guess you could say Anthony Reasnover, but I feel like
Maybe as well.
yeah, maybe Paul. I wouldn't have gave it to Paul this year.
No.
Not as offensive player of the year because I think his team was a little more helpful than the past for him. So moving on, defensive player of the year, we chose Emmit Gooden. I think that's one of the choices that we might want to explain. But I think we've already talked enough about Emmett that it's not hard to understand why he would be the defensive player of the year. I think for this award is one of those situations where in the Maple League this season, defensive players were better than offensive players. If that makes any sense as a whole. Obviously, I still think there's a couple quarterbacks, Anthony Reasnover, Christian Powell, that stand out offensively. Peter Anderson, certain players were better than their counterparts, but as a whole, there's a lot of good defensive players that played really well this year. There's a lot of defensive stat leaders this year. So it's hard to kind of just say, okay, this is the one defensive player of the year. But Emmett Gooden, he just stood out all the time. Like there was never a moment that you weren't aware of his impact, whether it was him actually, making plays or was it him forcing the offense to do things they didn't want to and making his teammates better. Like it's just too easy to see. And that's why he stood out so much. Obviously, he had less help than some people, and that could have been the reason. But also, we've seen him play against the best, and he still stood out no matter what the competition level was. So it's just really easy that he's the defensive player of the year. Moving on to the last award that we gave out, which it's called the Sisu Award. Sisu in Finnish means like determination, grit, chutzpah, or something like that. So that's the reasoning for the award. And it's for the most outstanding player. We're not going for MVP. None of our awards is most valuable player because value is in the eye of the beholder. We're looking for top players, outstanding players, player of the year. So outstanding player doesn't have to be the most valuable player. I don't think Anthony Reasnover was the most valuable player for the Corbeil Steelers. I said it earlier. They could have won without him. And I know that sounds like, oh, shoot, that's a bold take, but it's not. It's a really good team. They have
Pretty
a lot
much
of
chip game almost.
Yeah. True. If he had I think if he wasn't on the team, like if he couldn't play for that game, Tuukka Lehtinen would have had 20 carries.
Yeah, probably right. Yeah.
I don't understand why they did that. To me, it only sounds like they didn't give him the ball out of spite for some odd reason because it didn't make sense. But getting back to the awards and not talking too much on that, it's hard to keep talking about how good Leanthony Reasnover is, but we need to. We need to make sure that he understands that, as I said before, everyone else are men. This guy is a god. One thing that really stood out to me about Leanthony Reasnover this season was I saw in a lot of games where as hard as he played and as hard as he tried, he was never really satisfied. Like last year when he played, I remember seeing him when he scored, the excitement, oh, I'm happy to be here. This year when he played, it was more like just another one, on to the next, like business as usual. And I know some people might think, oh, well, maybe losing passion or something. For me, I think that he's getting to the point that he's thinking, how can I get even better? I honestly don't think we're going to see Leanthony Reasnover next year.
No, I don't think so either. He going to the ELF.
There was a few plays I saw where it looked like he wasn't actually trying, and then people would still miss him on the tackle, and he's like, I can't chill any more than this. Like, this is the lowest level I have. It's 9.5. So I wish him the best because I don't think he's coming back. But I do think that he's proven to be so far above the competition that it's made it almost mundane to talk about him. And we've done that this year. We've not talked about him nearly as much as we did last year, only because we're so accustomed to it. We're giving him the LeBron treatment. That's what I like to call it, the LeBron treatment. He's doing extraordinary things, and we're not, gushing over it because we've seen him do similar things before. But what he did this year was crazy. I want to say the last time a running back had 30 touchdowns was a few years ago when the Steelers first got into the league. I think they had that one running back that had
Mark
30
Carswell.
I don't think he had 30. Did he have 30?
I'm not sure.
I actually was talking about Gerard Johnson.
Rod did it, though.
He had 30 because he ran and passed the ball. Like, he played quarterback a couple times. And that was the first time they beat the Roosters. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago. And I think before that, the only person I could think of that would put up those type of numbers would be Steven Stokes.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of the level of company he's in. Like a lot of guys that put up those like crazy numbers, once they get to those crazy numbers, it's like you got to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's where he's at. I think he's one of those guys who this was great for him, but he needs to be in the ELF or something like that in the next year. As a matter of fact, didn't Lamar Carswell go to the ELF?
No,
GFL?
Lamar, he went to the GFL. He played for the Straubing Spiders this year. He made the all GFL All-Stars team as well. So
yeah, so stuff like that happens. And again, the Steelers can win without him. Like, I 100% believe in Tuka Lettinen. If you just don't want to necessarily get another running back, but also if you get another running back, you still have Tuka. So, I mean, I'm digressing because now we're just talking, but we're talking about Leanthony Reasnover because he's the best player of the year this year, easily the most outstanding player. And I think that's all we're going to talk about him. I don't think we're going to keep going. I don't feel like there's much more.
I don't think you can say much more than give him the title of he is a god. I mean, that's like the ultimate compliment, surely.
I mean, that's just how I feel about it. He is him. Everybody else is them. Leanthony Reasnover, he is him.
Hey, just like his Instagram, him Leanthony.
Him Leanthony. There you go.
American football in Finland.